it's interesting because it's different. So a lot of people just, they don't understand any of it and they're too scared to ask, right? So they sort of want to know, but then they sort of don't. So if I just tell them, then it's easier and you just start from the beginning.
Yeah.
So that's a good one. And then a lot of people, they don't, I've noticed that they don't want to know all the details. They just want to know how they can use it and what they can get out of it. It's quite transactional.
Yeah.
And then of course there's like the really excited ones that have been in the industry for a while, and then they're very engaged. You know, they really want to know like how it's making a difference and things like that. So another thing that I love is gaming, right?
Yeah.
Because it's one of the easiest ways that I've been able to, you know, have a use case sort of to explain to them how they could really, I don't know, change the way they think about money, you know, like play to earn games is so amazing. And, you know, I think the way people thought about work before was so different to now, because now, you know, well, I'll use the Philippines as an example. Throughout the pandemic, you know, obviously there was so much poverty like running through the Philippines, which is terrible. But a lot of people were using play to earn games like Axie Infinity to actually feed their families, which is amazing, right? Like they don't have a job, but that's okay because they can play crypto games. Like it's so cool. And so I love that. And I found that really a useful way to explain how, money, like the way you can think about money is different and you can earn crypto by playing games. So cool.
Yeah. So can you maybe expand on what play to earn means just for our audience who may not be familiar?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll use Axie Infinity as an example. So it's a little bit like, okay, Pokemon in the past, right? So most people are quite familiar with that. You know, you get your little Pokemons and you can, you know, battle other Pokemons or trade them, or we've all used Pokemon cards, right? But so Axie Infinity is similar. Like you get little Axies and you can breed with them, you can trade them, you can like battle other Axies, and you're actually earning crypto while you play these games. And so you're earning SLP, which is their native crypto. Yeah, exactly. And you use the SLP in the game to breed or do different things with your Axies. Yeah, exactly. But you can also trade SLP or convert SLP on an actual exchange. So you could convert it to Bitcoin or fiat or trade it with USDT, whatever you want to do. So it's really cool, and I think it's a really great way to get into crypto. For two reasons. One, it's a bit of an investment because you need to use Ethereum to actually buy your Axies. So that's for starters. So say when I first started, I think I bought my Axie for $200 US. And now because of the price of Ethereum has gone up, it's now worth like $2,000 US or something like that. Right? Yeah, so it's a bit of an investment in the starters, and it sort of gives you a bit of a feel on how to use Ethereum and the different like ways you can use, you know, blockchains like that. And then it also can give you access to SLP, which you can then learn about trading and different things like that. So I think it's a great way to really get immersed into the industry in a sort of safe and fun way.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier that a lot of, you know, your more enthusiastic audience, more experienced audience wants to know what kind of impact a project can have. I'm curious if you would talk to us about maybe some of the ways that you've seen crypto projects have an impact.
Yeah, I mean, well, so one of them was in the Philippines, which I love that example.
Yeah, that was good.
So there are ones like that. I think there's so many new projects coming out that are really cool. You know, and it shows a lot of different ways that, I guess it depends on what their interest is, I suppose, because I think crypto is solving problems all the time, right? Like with payment systems and, you know, and just like security is really cool. And so I get a lot of questions, you know, of just, I guess it's people who are a bit, not skeptical, but they're like, okay, I get the idea of it. I get why this technology is interesting, but you know, what are like sort of the more intricate details? Like, is it safe? Like, is it better to use a wallet, or is it better to keep my money on an exchange, or different things like that? And so I like to, you know, try and explain the difference between like, well, if you want to trade, then you keep it on an exchange. If you want to keep it safe, you can put it in a ledger. And like, I guess it depends on what they need and what they want. And so I kind of try and interact with my followers enough to really help them so that they're all probably learning from each other.
Yeah.
It was a roundabout way of explaining it.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. Any kind of like buyer beware, user beware thoughts that people should be aware, thinking about whenever they're getting into crypto?
Yeah, absolutely. And there are a few things you need to keep in mind. Gas fees is always one that's been talked about. So you just have to make sure that you research but that is again getting much better.
Yeah.
So there's different ways to send your money than just using Ethereum that'll cost you a third of what you're sending.
Right.
Well, that's not a real number, but you know what I mean. And yeah, so gas fees is an important one. And just like make sure that whatever you're buying, you have actually looked into. Yeah. Because there are a lot of talking, Doge, Shiba, buy all these altcoins, but if you don't take a minute and actually read what they're doing, then you could end up, just buying into a pump and dump kind of scheme, and then, you could get burnt. So do a little bit of research before you jump in, find a credible source that you trust, and yeah, but there are definitely ones out there. So it's a lot easier than a few years ago.
Yeah. So you mentioned Dogecoin and
Yes.
Shiba Inu, I think, and so I wonder what your thoughts are on meme coins. Are they what do you think?
I think if you're an experienced trader, I think they're fabulous because you can make quite a lot of money off them, right? If you sort of know what you're doing. But I think it's a very interesting industry because the regulations aren't quite in place, right? So people can just pump and dump. You can put $2 million into it, boost it by X amount, and then you make a fortune, but you've made a lot of other people lose as well. So you have to know a little bit what you're doing. So the meme coins, it's very interesting because you just need one influencer like Elon Musk to totally change the perception of it, right, in everybody's eyes. But I think if you're going for a longer term, actual legit investment for yourself, I think you should just check in on what you're buying, because they are easy to manipulate.
Yeah. So for traders and taking advantage of the volatility, good opportunity.
Yeah.
Not something for hodling.
Well, that's right. And I think the percentage is 80%, because it is so accessible, there is, this other side of it. So I think 80% of traders actually lose their money because they're inexperienced.
Yeah.
And in the past, you had to be a broker to actually trade things like this, whereas now it's like any random person could do it. Yeah. So I think just make sure you're careful with what you're doing, because 80% is quite a big number of people that get burnt.